So America spends huge amounts of money on defense. I think it's like probably number 2 now to our entitlement programs, but it's the thing we spend the most money on. And there's a lot of stuff that it seems, from my perspective, is actually more like a cronyism or jobs program or cultures that are afraid of new innovation. You're on the board of a company I helped found called Esper, which is one of the world's most powerful directed energy systems. We had Bomar, the CTO, on the show earlier. And it's revolutionary technology, but there isn't really a lot of frameworks to support revolutionary technologies in the DoD. It takes a long time. Like someone like me and my friends could start them because we can just give them a ton of capital to get to the point where eventually they break in. But it seems like it's really hard for new technologies to break in, and almost everything just goes through the old legacy companies. And so what should we be doing to make sure the Pentagon's more open to new, better technologies?
Boy, it's such a great question, and I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I came to the job both as Secretary of the Army and Secretary of Defense with a background from the defense industry, from one of those prime companies. So I had a chance to see and understand the dynamics from those sides as well as from the congressional side. Look, the biggest problem is a risk-averse culture at DoD, where you're not penalized for taking a chance on a new technology, where it's better off to be safe and to go the safer route. Of course, that's not the world that you work in or that I work in now, where the venture is willing to put big bets on technologies and win or lose because the payoff is so big. That's what we need to get to. There have been attempts in the past. I think some of my predecessors introduced, the DIU, Defense Innovation Unit. Then we had the Rapid Capabilities Unit. I overhauled the Rapid Capabilities Task Force in the Army to do this. I stood up Army Futures Command here in Austin, Texas, to get after that. My whole thing was most of the innovation, a good deal of the innovation is happening with these small entrepreneurs, innovators, folks you know well, Joe. And the key is, how do we get them married up with the big institutional bureaucracy of DoD, and then get DoD to spend some of that money and take and make those big bets, right? And first and foremost, I think it's far more about the culture than it is about the tools available to DoD. And that's a challenge. It's going to take leadership at the top, something I try to do to really get folks to make those bets and learn a different way of doing business.
How can we bring more technologists into the bureaucracy? It seems like a lot of the bureaucracy is maybe not as fluent in modern technology culture, and maybe it can't afford to hire the best technologists. Maybe they don't seem to be attracted to it. Are there attempts you've seen to do that, or is that something that matters?
With the Army, we had fellowship programs where we take Army majors mid-career who had technology backgrounds who were in acquisition. We share them with industry, if you will. There are other programs like that to do that, but you still got to deal with that massive bureaucracy in the middle, whose career are built on trying to advance programs and are comfortable with a slower pace and with the traditional providers and suppliers. One of the reasons why, when we stood up Futures Command, we wanted to put it here in Austin, Texas, is we wanted to get it away from those traditional hubs.
Just bring into a new culture.
Bring it to a new culture where
That's cool.
Innovation was living and thriving.
What are some of the internal obstacles you face at the DoD from the bureaucracy? I'm curious. Are there things that, as a leader, let's say I want to go in and help run the DoD in 20 years or something, and I get to do that? Like, are there people inside who are secretly making your life harder or slowing things down?
Well, look, they're all good people. I don't think anybody's trying to do it on purpose, but they've been conditioned over years to follow, for example, long checklists of things they must do. They like to build long lists of requirements that tell an innovator everything he or she must do to make it to make the technology the way it is. And I think that type of over bureaucratization of the innovation really hurts.
It's so top down. It's telling exactly what you need.
Very top down. It's very sequential in process. So one of the things we try to change with the Army Futures Command is put all the people in the room at the same time. So it was less like a relay race and more like a football huddle where you'd all get out and run the play. And it was just a number of techniques like that, but still, you got to fight the bureaucracy. You got to bring those young innovators and entrepreneurs in and engage them.
I noticed with a recent RFP from the Air Force for the EMP space, which is relevant to stuff that we're working on. They asked for a system that could do certain things, and we could actually do it much better, much cheaper.
Right.
But they specified how the system had to work, which is not how ours works. So even though it was clear, if they're asking for a solution, ours was a better solution. They'd specified how it had to work. Why? It feels like that comes from the 1960s. It feels like that's the old way of specking everything out, which is crazy.
You mentioned Esper a few moments ago. So I sit on that board. You co-founded it. One of the things we found is that last year, Esper proved through its Leonidas system it can knock down drones and drone swarms through high-power microwave. And not long ago, if memory serves me right, a requirement came out from somebody within DoD, and it said with a drone counter drone technology, it had to be vacuum tube technology.
Yeah.
Well, look, that's
Well,
that's what we've been using the last 50 years.
And that was written 3 or 4 years ago. And I remember chatting with the chief of staff of the Air Force. He's like, well, even I don't have the ability to change that. Maybe next time I could change it, but this time it's already says that, so I can't fix it.
I'm not sure about that. That's where leaders have to get involved.
You think leaders could get involved and fix these things?
I think so, absolutely. And so we shouldn't tell them what type of technology. We should just say, what's the outcome we want? We want the ability to shoot down certain types of drones, fixed wing, rotary wing at certain distances, and that's it. Whether it's vacuum tube or digital technology like the Esper system uses, it shouldn't make a difference.
A lot of these people who are senior in the bureaucracy end up going to work for the legacy defense companies. They move back and forth. That must influence some of this, where they realize that if they're doing it a certain way, it helps the legacy and protects the legacy ones. It's going to help their job. You think there's some
I
of
don't
that?
know. I hate to kind of apply those motives to folks. Maybe that's true in some cases. I just think they've grown up in a culture that, again, is risk averse. They know that the long established prime companies can deliver. It's just that they don't innovate as quickly. They may take them longer to deliver the technology, but at least they'll get it right at the end, is the presumption.
Another policy question. A lot of people tell me that the way it tends to work is you have a certain budget, and if you don't spend it, there's a sense that you're not going to get the same budget next year, that the planners are going to take some of the money away from you didn't need, and therefore you're not going to need it next year either. So there seems like a lot of people feel like they have to spend money sometimes inefficiently. Is that something you saw?
Well, you see that not just in acquisition, but in personnel and everything. I mean, there is this notion if you don't spend your budget, then obviously you didn't need it all. So maybe we could take it back. And that becomes a negotiation not only within the service or DoD, but then ultimately with Capitol Hill that appropriates some money. So those are all considerations. But again, it gets back to what are the motivations and incentives. In the private industry, as you know, you can line up incentives really closely with the outcome you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
It's much, much harder in the bureaucracy.
Because one of the ideas people have is that if they don't spend all their money, make it easier for them to spend some of it on a new innovation or something like that. Are there things like that that could be done on a policy level to help, or is that too difficult?
Well, one idea that I've put forward is to really give the Secretary of Defense, the service secretaries, a fund by which they can give contracts directly to young, again, innovators, entrepreneurs. I keep saying young, but innovators, entrepreneurs.
Up-and-coming companies.
Up-and-coming companies, that's right. At some certain amount. It can't be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. It needs to be in the millions at least, because that's what you need to get going. And also be willing, again, to have a 20, 30, 40% success rate. It's not going to be 100%.
Yep.
If it's 100%, then you're not making big bets.
Yeah, you got to be taking risk. So talking about the policy successes from your tenure as defense secretary, I understand your top priority was implementing the national defense strategy. What were you able to accomplish, and how do you measure the success of that?
Look, I think first and foremost, if the United States is going to beat China in the long run and Russia, of course, in the closer term, we have to have an integrated system of allies and partners. And I really spent a lot of time on the road meeting with our allies and partners, talking about readiness, how can we work better together, et cetera. Beyond that, I also focused inside the building. I did identify China as our pacing threat. We did a number of things to reorient the system. We came up with a new warfighting concept, new models of operational and tactical readiness. I focused on writing a plan for a future Navy that could deal with China in the 21st century, and that would make sure that we are the primary best naval force on the planet. So there are a number of things along those lines. And then also, I spent a lot of time looking at our military families and our military spouses. That's the backbone of our military strength. It's a family business, if you will. Mm-hmm. But taking care of those who serve
taking care of the families is critical.